Rick and Morty Season 7 time. Wow, we're finally here. The latest season of Rick and Morty. It has been a wild journey. And hey, you should stick around the channel. I'm planning on making 2 more videos related to Rick and Morty. And I'll also be covering every season that comes out from now on. Season 8 should be out this year, so be ready for a video covering it. While recording, they revealed Season 8's release date to be May 25th. So it's way sooner than I expected. So Season 7. When I first watched this season, I thought it was fine. There are some truly awful episodes, but there were also some fantastic ones. This season just felt really weird, and that could be due to the recast of Rick and Morty. Justin Roiland was fired for reasons, so they had to do the impossible task of recasting Rick and Morty. I mean, it probably wasn't that hard. I've seen plenty of people do amazing Rick and Morty impressions. The new voices sound a bit different, but overall, pretty good. But in terms of the season, I thought it was a downgrade from Season 6. But that might be because this season almost got my channel deleted. You might be asking how. Well, back when I was under 1,000 subscribers, by the way, thank you guys for 8,000, your guys' support is actually insane. I want to try and hit 10,000 subscribers by June, so if you're not subscribed, you should. Anyways, when Rick and Morty Season 7 was airing, I made short reviews of every episode that came out, and they were doing pretty well. One day when I got home from school, I saw that I got 2 strikes on my channel. I was terrified about getting one more strike, because my channel would be deleted, so I deleted most of my shorts. And guess what got me the strikes? That's right, the Season 7 episode reviews. I'm still pretty pissed about this, because content farms can upload full clips of the show and have nothing happen to them, but when someone is under fair use, that's who they give the strikes to. Fuck you, Warner Brothers. So after that, this season made me a bit sad whenever I watched it, because I was too afraid to make a Season 7 video. Now look at me, Warner Brothers. You can't take me down. I'm gonna regret saying that, aren't I? But now that that debacle is over, I want to rewatch the season with an open mind and find out if Season 7 is any good. A lot of you think so in the comments, so I'm gonna ask this question one last time. Is Rick and Morty Season 7 any good? Let's find out. Episode 1 is how Poopy got his poop back. Oh no. I remember despising this episode. I almost made a whole video about how awful this episode is when it first came out. Has my opinion changed on the second viewing? Probably not, but we'll see. This episode starts off with the family eating breakfast like usual. It's then revealed that Poopy has been living with the Smiths for a while. Since his wife left him, he got fired and is now an alcoholic. If you don't remember who Poopy is, it's Mr. Poopy Butthole. I just don't want to say that name 50 times. The family goes to Rick to try and get him to have an intervention with Poopy about his alcoholism. Yeah, Rick's definitely the best person to run an intervention about alcoholism. It would make sense for the whole family to do it because he is a family friend. But no, it has to be Rick because the family is selfish. Sure, Rick did get him fired back in the heist episode, but Beth shot him. So if anyone should do it, it's her. I mean, she's also an alcoholic, so maybe no one in the family should do it. Okay, let's talk about the new voice actors. Ian Cardone now voices Rick and Harry Belden now voices Morty. And I think both of them do a pretty good job with the voices. They sound pretty similar to Roiland with minor differences, and after a bit you get used to the new voices. But PB's voice is really fucking bad.
Bet you didn't expect to see me in a cold open, huh? Looks like I've taken another turn for the worse.
His voice was always annoying, but he wasn't in the show very much, so it never was a problem. But now that this episode is centered around him, and he talks all the time, it gets grating quick. His voice is also more annoying than Roiland's somehow. No ill will toward the new voice actor. I know it must have been hard to try and replicate the voice without sounding annoying, but I just can't stand it. Rick gets a bunch of his friends together like Bird Person, Gearhead, Squanchy, and Gene, their neighbor, because they need someone who was sober. Why doesn't Rick just get Morty? And why Gene? He's not interesting or funny. The only funny thing about him is the lawnmower gag in this episode where Rick pulls him off his lawnmower and it wreaks havoc. But that's it. Bird Person found his daughter and is now parenting her, which is neat. The gang goes to a restaurant where PB reveals that it's his birthday, so Rick feels bad and they party it up. They end up at a honey rave. Man, they really love referencing Blade. And they meet Hugh Jackman there. Okay, so I hate this. It feels weird for Hugh Jackman to be here. I'm not talking about the real person. They did get him to play himself. But it's kind of the same thing with Elon Tusk in Season 4, where there are infinite possibilities and they could get Hugh Jackman to play anything, but he just ends up playing himself. Hugh Jackman can actually act, unlike Elon Musk. So it sucks that he's just playing himself. It also doesn't help that most of his lines are references to roles he's played and they are really unfunny. They get wrecked and PB comes clean about it not being his birthday, and how he knew that Rick was trying to do an intervention. This would be a cool reveal if only everyone was pissed at him for this. Rick is the only one and the others don't say anything about it except that Rick's in the wrong. It doesn't even matter because Rick goes back and helps try and get PB his wife back anyways. Their plan fails when the predator from Predator that PB hired to spy on his ex-wife starts to date her. Like I said before, there are infinite possibilities and they just make the antagonist something from a different piece of media. They don't even try and do a parody of it like with Scary Terry. No, it's just the Predator. It feels lazy. PB kidnaps PB Jr. and the Predator attacks them. The group takes him down, then PB realizes that he's been crazy and should get his life back together and yada yada yada, I don't care. It ends with a pretty funny scene where all the characters fade away while PB does a voiceover explaining to the audience what they did later in life. Then Rick over-explains that they have pills that make them fade, and he took an unfading pill to come back. And the cab disappeared because everything you touch disappears, and yeah, it's bad. They could have just had PB already have the fading pill, and he takes it and says, man, does this help with hangovers? So this is a really bad episode. I didn't get much enjoyment from it. I just kind of stared at the screen blankly. I definitely didn't hate it as much on a rewatch. I used to think this episode was worse than the Dragooners episode, which now I think it's a bit better than that one. At least this episode doesn't make me uncomfortable. My initial hatred of this episode is probably due to how much I love season 6, and this being the first episode in season 7 didn't give me high hopes for the season. It's a terrible season premiere. If they would have put it in the middle of the season, I probably wouldn't have that bad of a reaction. I mean, most Rick and Morty season premieres are fantastic, so this one's an outlier. The only season premiere feeling thing in this episode is showing that Rick is still searching for Rick Prime, but that goes nowhere in this episode, which is lame. I do like to see Rick's friends together again. It's been a while, and it also confirms that Squanchy didn't die or get captured in the season 2 finale, which is cool. I just wish they brought him back for a better plot. PB is a fun gag character, but centering a whole episode around him was doomed to fail. There is a huge lore drop in this episode that I forgot to bring up. PB's real name is Wade. This episode is bad, and a terrible opener. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 60th spot, below Pickle Rick but above Claw and Hoarder, Special Rickdoms Morty. Episode 2 is the Jer-Rick Trap. Hell yeah, another Jerry and Rick adventure. This episode starts off with Jerry talking to Rick about getting his Rick back from Gene. They argue about who would use Rick's intellect better and eventually switch minds. This is a bit confusing. They don't switch bodies. They switch their intellect. This is a fairly interesting concept. A unique take on the classic body swap episode. I wonder what wacky antics they'll get up to.
Wait, no!
Yeah, that's right, they end up killing themselves almost immediately. Such a hilarious cold open. I love how Jerry can't handle the immense amount of knowledge, so he just finds a gun and ends it. Pretty dark, but hilarious. The garage puts them back together, but since their minds were swapped, it had no idea what brain parts to put where. Jerry and Rick's brains are all mixed up, so both of them are both Jerry and Rick. Now this is a fantastic concept, especially since it's Rick and Jerry. They have the most interesting dynamic in the show, and both have positive opinions of the other that they won't admit. At first they are pissed at each other. They go to get Morty from Chuxley, a mob boss. Chuxley being pissed at the new hire because he took Morty hostage not knowing who Rick is was really funny. I also like Morty taking advantage of the situation and asking for a milkshake.
My milkshake is empty! Okay.
I love that interaction, it just cracks me up. Rick and Jerry go and get Morty, but Chuxley grows some balls and attacks them. Rick and Jerry both realize they love their family, so they start to work together to take down the mobsters. They're having fun killing mobsters together. The song We Are Going to Be Friends by the White Stripes is playing during the sequence, and it's a pretty great song. Back at the garage, Rick and Jerry work together to get back to normal. This scene is amazing. It's just them having fun together. And I love when Rick says that when they get back to normal, the person in his body will probably yell at the person in Jerry's body, and that he's sorry. And then Jerry says that Rick is the closest thing he has to a friend. This episode has a lot of great character moments between these two, and I love it. They decide to run away and become a crime buddy duo in Hawaiian shirts and mess with criminals. Their designs are great. Then it's revealed that Chuxley is alive and has kidnapped Morty, Summer, and Beth to try and lure the duo out. They agree to rescue them, but first, they merge together into one being called Jer-Rick. When I first watched this episode, I was so surprised. This is a great escalation of the situation, and the design of Jer-Rick is actually unnerving. I hate it in a good way. They save the family and go back to the house, where Jer-Rick is preparing to leave. Then Gene comes over and gives them the rake back.
You guys don't give a goddamn shit about Gene.
You're right, Gene. I don't. You're boring and I hate you. Yeah, I know I'm beefing with a fictional character, but I don't care. I'd kick his boring ass. Jarek accidentally steps on the rake, causing Rick and Jerry to gain consciousness. I'm assuming because of the pain, and reveal that they're in hell, and want to be put back to normal. Then we get the final scene of Jerry and Rick arguing over breakfast, while We Are Gonna Be Friends starts to play again. This is a pretty great episode. It was fun all the way through, and it's very unpredictable. Like, who predicted when they first watched this episode that Jerry and Rick were going to combine bodies? I love body horror, so this shit is right up my alley. It's genuinely terrifying that both Rick and Jerry are conscious in Jarek. This episode is really funny. Jerry and Rick getting along is always great to see, and I'm glad that they admitted they actually like each other. It's a great progression from the last Jerry and Rick adventure, where Jerry says him and Rick are now friends. Now we know Rick secretly also considers Jerry as a friend, which is fantastic. An all-around enjoyable episode. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 25th spot, below Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, but above Rick Mansing the Stone. If you are enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing. What's your opinion on Season 7? If you want to see my videos a day early, you can become a channel member today. Last thing, if you want to go follow my letterbox, the link is in the description. Okay, self-promotion over, back to the video. Episode 3 is Air Force Wong. This episode starts off with Rick at therapy. This is great. It's not even a trick or anything. Rick is truly seeking therapy. I'm really liking his slow progression of becoming a better person. Then the president calls and Rick ignores him, leading to him showing up and interrupting his therapy session. The president and Dr. Wong flirt and Rick goes off with the president. Rick says that he can't date her, but the president doesn't care. A bit later, the president calls Rick again because the whole state of Virginia is acting weird. All of the residents seem to be doing amazing, and there is a culty vibe about them. The president puts a team together, but he needs a psychologist. Rick is pissed because he knows that the president put a team together just so he can see Dr. Wong again. Rick leaves because he thinks it's bullshit that he invited her. On the team, there is a guy who might be able to predict the future, showing a drawing of Rick getting killed by Bigfoot, which happens later this season. That's just a really cool detail. The team goes to Virginia, and everyone gets taken out by the residents throwing up in their mouths and being brainwashed. As you might have guessed, Unity is back. This episode feels like the writers put a bunch of Rick and Morty characters into a hat, pulled out 3, and decided to try and make an episode about them. And somehow they pull it off. Rick comes to the rescue and they get out of Virginia. They put a dome around Virginia, cutting off Unity. Rick and her talk, and she tells him that the only reason she took over Virginia was because Rick was ignoring her calls. She was worried about him because she heard that he's looking for Rick Prime again. I love this. At first it felt a bit cheap to bring Unity back. It felt like the creators brought her back for fan service. But after she explains why she's back, I love that she is. She still cares for Rick and wants to know if he's alright. She knows what happened the last time he went searching for Rick Prime. And this is where the episode's main theme comes in. Rick is not willing to trust most people. He trusts Morty and Bird Person, but that's really it. This episode is challenging him. He's changing for the better, but he still has things to work on. The president taking over America wouldn't have happened if Rick just let Unity explain herself in Virginia. But he didn't trust her. Since Unity can't control the people in Virginia, she can't release her control. Rick says that he will deal with it himself and Unity leaves. But then Rick leaves because he can't deal with Dr. Wong and the president's relationship. Once again, he doesn't trust them, and he's being very selfish. But I do see why he's mad about this one. Then Dr. Wong leaves the president because he's acting like a baby. Earlier in the episode, we are shown a news report that explains people's frustrations with the president. There's been so many problems while he's been in presidency. Some not his fault, like the dinosaurs, and some his fault, like the mutant turkeys and the lightsaber being dropped vertically. I love that they bring this up. It makes sense for people to start to hate him after everything that has happened. I wonder if they are going to do something with this next season. Maybe Rick has to help him get re-elected. Anyways, the president connects himself to the hive mind in Virginia and becomes the new host. My god, I hate the throw up. Unity's was fine because it was unrealistic, but this is just gross. The president starts to take over America, brainwashing everyone, so he can get a higher approval rating. I can make a very obvious joke, but I'm just not going to. I don't want to piss off anyone. Rick and Dr. Wong go to Unity for help. Dr. Wong says Rick was in the wrong by being hostile, and that he brought her with him so he can show Unity that he's changing. This is another great aspect of the episode. Rick has too much pride to admit that he's changed, so he makes someone else do it. Unity agrees to help take back over the Earth, and she does. Then she has to release everyone in America, which causes her a great amount of pain. Rick tries to help, but she just tells him to leave. The episode ends with the president and Rick drinking together, which is a fun ending. When I first watched this episode, I thought it was fine. I thought the characters they chose to center around were a weird pairing, and it felt disjointed, but I feel the opposite now. I love how they work together to show Rick's trust issues. They bring Unity back in a pretty interesting way, and add to the hive mind concept well. Unity has some Gromflamites on her ship who are the aliens from M. Night Shyamalan Aliens, which is pretty cool. Rick slowly changing is cool, and I like how it's displayed in this episode. I especially like the scene where Summer comes into the garage to ask if he's okay, since she saw that Unity was back, and he yells at her, but then he says sorry. It's a little moment, but I like it. The president being so desperate to win over the American people and also win over Dr. Wong is pretty funny. I'm liking Dr. Wong more the more episodes she's in. She's a great foil to Rick. One thing I've noticed is that this season has started off with very little Morty. 3 episodes with just Rick adventures feels a bit strange. It does make sense to focus on Rick more due to what will happen in episode 5. I have nothing else to say. It was a pretty decent episode. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 35th spot, below Lawnmower Dog, but above Mort Dinner Rick Andre. Episode 4 is That's a Morte. Before we get into this episode, a quick warning. This episode revolves around people ending their own life, and if you are easily disturbed by the subject, I'd suggest skipping this segment and going to episode 5. You've been warned. This episode starts off with the family eating
Rick's famous spaghetti!
That delivery is gold. The family loves Rick's spaghetti, but when Rick goes to get more, Morty follows and sees that Rick is digging the spaghetti out of a dead person. Yeah, that's not even the worst part. Rick found a planet where when someone ends their own life, their insides turn into spaghetti. What a fucking concept for a plot. This episode should have been doomed to fail with a plot like that, but somehow it works. It's kinda weird, it's just a different planet and not a different dimension, since the place looks exactly like Earth. I'm guessing it was originally going to be a different dimension, but due to what happens later in the episode, they needed it to be in one dimension. There's a little moment that I love, when Rick is showing Morty how this planet works, and he accidentally erased his own mind instead of a doctor who caught them. When Morty gives Rick his memory back, Rick doesn't erase Morty's memory of this embarrassing event. Rick would have done that in the earlier seasons. I mean, he erased Morty's memory of him mispronouncing granite. It's a small moment, but it shows that Rick has changed. When you praise a character for not erasing another character's memory, you know that character used to be really fucked up. Morty asks Rick to take him to the funeral of the guy they ate, and Morty gives a speech about how he ate him. Back at home, the family is pissed at Morty because he told them where the spaghetti comes from. Honestly, if I was in Morty's position, I wouldn't tell them. Maybe that's a bad take, but I'd just get Rick to stop serving it and not inform my family that they were eating people, to spare them from the guilt. Even though it doesn't matter because they actually are psychotic and are bummed they can't eat any more spaghetti. Morty gets invited back to the planet, where the president tells Morty to eat some spaghetti of a person who consented to be eaten. He eats some, then takes the rest home for the family since it's now ethical to eat. I mean, I wouldn't eat it, no matter how good it is. Now, if it was fried pickles and ranch, that's a different discussion. Rick ruins dinner when he reveals that the planet is now selling spaghetti throughout the galaxy, using Morty's likeness as branding. This next scene is extremely messed up, just to warn you. Rick and Morty go back to the planet. It is now more bleak looking, which was the president's plan. She did stuff like painting the sun gray, only broadcasting bad reality TV, and taking out safety railings on bridges and putting spaghetti strainers at the bottom of them so more people will end their life and the planet will get more money. My god, that's so fucked up. Morty and Rick try to find an ethical way to produce the spaghetti, which leads to them making clones that are just torsos that will stab themselves producing spaghetti. The scene showing this process is really disturbing. This is obvious commentary on how terribly animals are treated by the meat industry. Everything seems to be going great until protesters come in saying this spaghetti isn't as good and blow up the factory. Rick is done with this adventure and comes up with a plan to end it. Rick finds a man who is supposed to die soon named Fred Bunks. Fred hates the spaghetti industry, so he agrees to help Rick end it. They hook his brain into a machine and broadcast it to the spaghetti planet, where there are aliens trying to get people of the planet to end their own lives, which is morbidly hilarious. Rick injects Fred with something that will kill him. Before dying, Fred's life flashes before his eyes, which everyone on the planet can see. It shows the highs and lows of his life, and when it's done, no one wants to eat the spaghetti anymore. So this is the classic Rick and Morty sad montage of a person's life that we've all come to love. I've heard people say this is played out and has way less of an impact since we've seen this type of thing in the show before. I get where they're coming from, but I love this scene and couldn't imagine the episode ending in any other way. It's an episode about eating people, so showing a person's entire life and then cutting them open and seeing if anyone wants to eat them is a genius resolution. To the people that say it's emotionally manipulative and that's why they dislike it, all I have to say is, no shit. It has to be to get everyone to stop eating people spaghetti. Also, the song that plays during the sequence, Live Forever by Kotami and Ryan Elder, is fantastic. The episode ends with the family eating Salisbury steak that Rick brought, and living in ignorance of what it really is. This episode is great. It's definitely the most disturbing episode in the show. It reminds me a lot of the film Soylent Green. I'd be surprised if this plot wasn't somewhat inspired by it. I love how Morty is trying to find a moral way to keep the spaghetti industry going, but in reality, there is no moral way. This reflects the meat industry perfectly, and using humans is a stroke of genius, because people will care more about humans being eaten than animals. It's fucked up for a reason, to try and explore an interesting and morally complex topic. Unlike the sperm episode. Yeah, I'm still on that. What was the point of making that episode? Having the first Rick and Morty adventure in the season be the 4th episode is pretty weird. They do the classic formula of Morty doing something Rick doesn't want him to do, and then something bad happens because of Morty's meddling. Morty agrees to stop looking deeper into the stuff that Rick does, because he finally realizes that Rick does know best, or at least knows better than Morty. Every time Morty tries to go against him, it usually ends with a lot of people dying. This episode had the risk of coming off shocking just to be shocking. But I think they toe the line with having an interesting reflection of the meat industry that it worked. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 22nd spot, below Look Who's Purging Now, but above Rickternal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort. Episode 5 is Unmort Ricken. This is going to be a long segment. This episode starts off with Rick and Morty coming back from an adventure and Morty complaining like usual. It seems pretty normal until Morty is in his room making something. He goes to Rick, who is a drunken mess, and puts on an eye patch. You would not believe the amount of hype I had watching this for the first time. I was not expecting them to bring evil Morty back so soon. The first part of that line I'll say a lot during this segment. We are shown evil Morty's backstory. One day he got fed up with his Rick, enslaved him using tech. Then it recaps close encounters of the Rick kind and the Ricklantics mix-up from his perspective. Was this really necessary? No. It doesn't add much to his character. We could already assume he got sick and tired of his Rick and went AWOL. But the fanboy in me is saying, I don't give a fuck. This is awesome. The song they use during this scene is amazing. No matter what the series does right or wrong, they always hit it out of the park with the music. My god, it's always so fucking great. My favorite part in this montage is the recontextualization of the line in Close Encounters of the Rick Kind, where evil Rick tells the Mortys to kill him. In that episode, you think he's just crazy, but it turns out he had attempted to end his own life many times, but evil Morty wouldn't let him. So seeing the opportunity of him being killed, he screamed at the Mortys to do it and set him free. Such a fantastic detail that the writers didn't have to add, but they just decided to write peak. Then, we get to see outside the central finite curve for the first time in the show. Once again, I was not expecting to see this so soon. Honestly, I get why the Ricks made the central finite curve now. Being outside of it seems like hell. Just a bunch of portals opening from different dimensions and dangerous creatures. But evil Morty is loving it, until our Rick and Morty start to frack the central finite curve to try and find Rick Prime. Evil Morty confronts them because they are somehow messing with his home.
Evil Morty! Should I grab the net?
Yes!
That caught me off guard. I don't know why I find it so funny they have a net just in case evil Morty comes back.
Shouldn't you be turning yourself into a pickle?
Guys, you have to let that go. Evil Morty tries to help Rick find Rick Prime so they will leave him alone. But then they get sucked into a trap set by Rick Prime. There are a bunch of Ricks there who are looking for Rick Prime. Rick Prime puts them into a battle royale, pinning all the Ricks against each other.
Yo sé que te gusta verme, J. Carlos. Yo sé que te gusta verme como lo hago, J. Carlos. Aquí va tu jame para ti, hermano. Jame.
Sorry, I love that clip and I have nowhere else to put it. The gang wins and uses the black goop that sucked them into the trap to get out of there before they're killed. Then Rick attempts to use the goop to find Rick Prime. And he actually does. Once again, I was not expecting them to find Rick Prime this early. Rick goes to confront Rick Prime and tells evil Morty and Morty not to follow. They do follow him, of course. Then we finally meet him, Rick Prime, the actual Rick Prime. He destroys Rick's car and says that its voice sounds a bit like Diane's. Once again, amazing writing that takes a simple concept of Rick's car speaking and makes it tragic. Then comes the biggest lore drop of the episode. Ever since Rick revealed his backstory in season 5, I wondered why he didn't just go to a new dimension with a Diane in it, like he did with the Smith family. Well, it turns out that Rick Prime made a device called the Omega device that erases someone from every dimension. and he did this to Diane. Actual peak. My god, someone needs to stop them. They just keep making amazing lore reveals. It's actually kinda uncanny how great they are. They're never bad. Hell, they just keep getting better and better, giving us a deeper understanding of Rick as a character and why he hates Rick Prime so much. The Omega device is a fascinating concept that is also terrifying. Then Rick Prime shows the power of the machine by erasing Slow Mobius from existence. You remember him, right? The guy at Rick's party in Risky Business? I love how Rick Prime is actually a bit sad about this. Rick, Morty, and Evil Morty fight Rick Prime because he's going to erase all of Rick's family to get him to stop his pursuit of revenge. I mean, that just gives Rick more motivation to get revenge, so I don't know what Rick Prime was thinking. This scene is awesome. The choreography is great. The animation is great. I love R. Morty taking action. And Rick Prime having giant robots of Diane is fucking metal. R. Rick is out for the count, and Rick Prime is now focusing on Morty. I love how he's just like, hey grandson, I'm going to kill you now. I'm glad they addressed the fact that R. Morty is Rick Prime's grandson in this way. So being so nonchalant about killing him is hilariously tragic. But it turns out that Rick Prime was talking to Evil Morty, who took off his eye patch and put it on Morty to trick him. Ah, the old Stan Pine switch up. I like that you can tell this is Evil Morty just by what he says.
Oh, jeez. Nice to meet you, I guess.
Evil Morty doesn't know our Morty too well, so he doesn't know that Morty's not that much of a pushover. He's just doing the stereotypical Morty dialogue. Evil Morty then stuns Rick Prime. Evil Morty takes Rick Prime into a room and makes sure he has no decoys left. I love how Rick Prime is jokey during this, but the more decoys Evil Morty disconnects, the more desperate he starts to sound and act, even offering to team up with him. Which, as we know from last season premiere's post-credit scene, Rick Prime doesn't like to team up, so we know he's desperate. Evil Morty revives our Rick and leaves the two Ricks alone. Rick goes up to Rick Prime and punches him to death. The shock when I first watched this was massive. Like, Rick Prime is the big overarching villain of the series, and he's just gone. The voice acting is fantastic here, with Rick Prime sounding so cocky at first, but the more he gets punched, the more he starts to break.
What's your life without me? And eventually, you did! You lived in my house!
Gosh, what a great scene. It's so great because it's taken completely seriously. Rick doesn't go like, well, that just happened, and references something. No, he just beats the absolute shit out of Rick Prime with an intense fury. Rick leaves the room and talks with Evil Morty, who reveals he took the schematics of the Omega device and threatens that if they ever come after him, he will use them. He also says our Rick is different and he could use him eventually. Then Look On Down from the Bridge by Maisie starts to play as Rick looks lifeless. Morty hugs him and they go home, where Rick just kind of looks at his family with no emotion. I love this scene so much. This mirrors Morty's experience in Rick Potion number 9, obviously with the song, but also just like Morty in that scene, Rick has no idea what to do now. Rick just killed the man he's been hunting for most of his life. Now what is his purpose? So yeah, I love this episode. The writers played all their cards, and it still has me wondering, what now? Rick Prime is dead, Evil Morty is out of the picture for now, and Rick has no more motivation. This is very subversive, but it's not like the subversion in last season with the rift being sealed up. This subversion makes you satisfied and makes you excited for the future. Sure, there are still things that we don't know about Rick Prime, like why he did any of this. He had a family, what was his motivation to do this? So a flashback episode about him would be cool, but what after that? What I'm thinking they're gonna do is that there's going to be a big bad outside the central finite curve that wants to do something, so Evil Morty enlists Rick's help to stop them. Because other than that, I can't imagine what they'll do. I also just want that because Evil Morty and Rick's dynamic is just so much fun. They're basically just having a smug off, trying to see who is the most smug, and it's hilarious. This episode is nearly perfect. From the lore reveals, the music, the plot, the emotion, the voice acting, the comedy, it's all just so great. I love the placement of this episode as well, halfway through the season. This feels like a season finale, but I'm glad they put it here, so they have time to explore Rick's feelings on what happened. It also has me so excited for season 8. I know I still have half this season to go, but I love theorizing what will come next, and I can't wait to see what happens. This episode definitely made up for the first episode. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 6th spot, below A Wrinkle in Time, but above Wedding Squanchers. Episode 6 is Rick Fending Your Mort. This episode is this season's take on interdimensional cable. After last season's disappointing entry, this one is a great return to form. This episode starts off with Rick in the garage, a drunken mess. Morty enlightens the audience on Rick's condition. He's been like this for weeks, not wanting to go on any adventures. Morty wants to use one of his punch cards from Me Seeks and Destroy to force Rick to go on an adventure, but Rick doesn't remember stamping any of the cards. Morty says he does it himself because Rick always forgets. To ensure that Rick can't deny these stamps, Morty keeps a list of all the adventures that Rick and him go on. So Rick does an audit, grabbing an observer, whose race observes and can show clips from any part of anyone's life. So there's a lot to love about this setup. After the last episode first premiered, I wondered what Rick would be like after completing his goal of killing Rick Prime. As it turns out, he has no motivation to do anything and just drinks a lot. Centering this episode around Morty trying to get him to go on an adventure with the punch cards is great. I've always loved whenever they bring these punch cards back, and this is a fantastic use of them. It's a really clever way to bring them back. This opening shows how lost Rick is mentally without anything to work towards, and I think this is a fantastic direction to go. The audit is underway and is going fine, but it quickly devolves into the observer showing clips that are unrelated, so Rick pays him to leave. But then the observer starts to play clips right outside the house trying to embarrass Rick and Morty, and eventually the entire family. I love when the observer plays something embarrassing of Jerry, and Jerry isn't fazed because he knows everyone already sees him as embarrassing. Very funny. This sequence also reveals something that might be important later. Space Beth and Bird Person are working together to fight against the Galactic Federation, or at the very least have in the past. Right now nothing has come of it, but it could be important in the future. Morty gets pissed at the observer and accidentally kills him. Then Rick and Morty are tried in a court full of observers to see if they are really evil or good. Normally, something like them playing a clip from earlier in the show, like here in the courtroom, where they play a clip of Rick and Morty in the giant courtroom from Me Seeks and Destroy, would make me a bit mad. But I kinda like it, because it's them being tongue-in-cheek on how they already did something similar to this. That's also the episode they started the punch card system, so out of all the episodes to connect this episode to, it would be Me Seeks and Destroy. Also, Me Seeks and Destroy is in my top 5 favorite episodes of Rick and Morty, so seeing a clip of it in season 7 made me fanboy a bit. I'm only human after all. Eventually, Rick and Morty turn the case around on the observers, showing that the observers themselves are pretty evil. The observers fight each other and Rick and Morty leave. Then Rick agrees to go on an adventure with Morty, ending with a pretty sweet moment between them, flying off to find an adventure. Last season I complained about the video game interdimensional cable plot because it felt like they were running out of ideas. I mean, that was the first episode not to center around the idea. It was the B plot, but maybe they just needed a break because this episode comes back full force with a great concept for the clip show type of episode. But the thing that makes or breaks these types of episodes is how funny it is. So, is this episode funny?
People died!
So by your logic, 9/11 was an adventure? Very well. Bear witness to 9/11.
No!
Dude, don't. Just...
Yeah, this episode's hilarious. I remember when this episode first came out, all the blue checkmarks on Twitter tweeted out the gun gag, where Morty keeps misunderstanding the uses of guns Rick gives him. And all the blue checkmarks said something like, wait, Rick and Morty is funny again? And usually I don't like to agree with blue checkmarks, but it was a really well-crafted joke. Even jokes like Rick turning himself into a leg, obviously a homage to Pickle Rick, which would usually annoy me, actually got a chuckle out of me. This season's references to past episodes don't make me that annoyed compared to last season, and I can't put a finger on why and what changed. Even a meta joke made me laugh, where Rick killed the versions of them that were in Space Jam 2. It's not that clever, but it's still pretty funny. This episode is definitely the funniest of the season so far. We'll talk more about that in the conclusion, but the season's comedy is a huge improvement from the last couple of seasons. I would compare it to season 3 in terms of the jokes. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 25th spot, below Rickternal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort, but above Risky Business. Man, other than the first episode, this season has been great. Hopefully it stays that way for the rest of the season. It doesn't. Episode 7 is Wet Caught, a Mortican Summer. This episode starts off with Summer doing chores for Rick. Since she completed all of them, Rick rewards her with an attribute slider, which is a device that can customize your attributes, like getting rid of intelligence and gaining muscle. This is a great concept with plenty of story opportunities. Morty comes into the garage and complains because he wants one for a party. Summer says no since she's also going to a party. At the party, Summer is showing off and Morty is brooding. It's a bit weird that Morty is at this party, since it's full of popular kids older than him, but I like it. He's gained a lot more confidence over the seasons, so he would have a chance to get invited. Morty steals the device, and Summer and him wrestle and end up in the pool. This causes the device to malfunction, which causes Morty and Summer to combine, with Morty becoming a Quado, which is a psychic baby thing that is connected to someone. I don't know, it's from Total Recall, and I haven't seen that movie, and this episode doesn't make me want to watch it. I was excited for this episode at first. It seemed like it was going to be a more grounded episode, centered around a rivalry between Morty and Summer. We haven't gotten a grounded school main plot like this since Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, so it would have been a nice change of pace. But no, it turns into this. I hate the designs of the Quados in this episode, and having Morty and Summer kind of combined is just gross and weird. And Morty keeps saying this.
Open your mind.
Preach.
It gets old quick. Summer goes to Rick so he can separate them, but Rick says she needs to do some chores first. She does, but then starts scrolling on her phone, seeing cringe Instagram stories of her and Morty from the party. Then she randomly gets an ad for a Quado party. They are really going with this plot, aren't they? Summer goes to the Quado party and has fun. Then she gets kidnapped, Morty gets surgically removed, and Summer is almost cremated alive, but her cybernetically enhanced ponytail saves her. I like how they set this up at the beginning of the episode, with it being a reward from Rick for Summer doing chores. You can call it Chekhov's ponytail. Yeah, I know I've done that joke before, but I don't care. Beth asks Rick where the kids are, so he goes to try and find them. I love the gag where Rick beats up the wrong people, and they're just like, dude, I get paid minimum wage. I'll tell you anything. You don't need to beat me up. He eventually finds Summer with one of the Quado guys that she took hostage. Summer finally opens her mind, whatever the hell that means, and now she can talk to Morty telepathically. Summer's hostage takes them to where Morty is. Summer and Rick search for Morty.
What is this? Your first Taken?
So you're telling me that Summer hasn't watched Die Hard, but she's watched Taken. I know it's more modern, but come on. Also, to all the people commenting that they haven't watched Die Hard, I'm disappointed and go watch it after this video. Summer and Rick fight off goons, while Summer complains that Rick always gives Morty what he wants and it's not fair that she has to work for it. I mean, Rick doesn't give Morty an attribute slider at the beginning of the episode. If they just had Morty being at the party and being jealous of Summer having an attribute slider, this plot would have worked. But since the things she's complaining about is literally contradicted at the very beginning of the episode, it feels weird. But I do get where she's coming from. Rick definitely does more with Morty. This does lead to a great moment, where Rick says that he respects her and that she reminds him of Diane. That's such a sweet moment, and I know you're probably tired of me saying this all the time, but it shows that he's changing. He never brings up Diane, unless if it's with the context of Rick Prime, so him bringing her up and comparing her to Summer is such a great moment. Also, him saying he respects her is another fantastic moment of Rick opening up. They find the leader of the Quado trafficking ring, Kenneth, who looks like Jesus. And he reveals that his Quado has a Quado who is the real mastermind. I don't know what it is about this gag, but it actually made me cringe. I thought it was so unfunny, especially when they revealed that he has another Quado. The Quado knife actually got me though, it's so fucking stupid. Morty attacks Kenneth after escaping, and eventually the gang realizes that Kenneth is lame. So Rick just hijacks his spider thing and walks him into the ocean. That got a laugh out of me. Then it ends with Morty playing frisbee golf still in Quado form, and Summer going out with a girl she saved. Yeah, so this episode is pretty bad. I don't give a shit about Total Recall, so maybe if you're a fan of that movie, you might get a kick out of this episode. Probably not though, because this episode is just kind of boring, gross, and lame. They do basically nothing with the Quado idea, except rich people like to buy them. But they could have done that with anything. I also hate the designs of them. They make me deeply uncomfortable, especially Slime Morty. He reminds me of a horrific version of the pupa from Solar Opposites. To be fair, there are a couple good jokes, and a sweet moment between Summer and Rick. But other than that, there isn't much else going for this episode. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 60th spot, below a Morty Can Graffiti, but above Rattlestar Rick Lactica. Episode 8 is Rise of the Numericans, the movie. This episode starts off on the planet of Alpha Betrium, where Water T is talking to his father. This is a direct sequel to Get Swifty, following Water T trying to stop the Numericans, who are trying to take over Alpha Betrium. Magma Q is dying and gives Water T an artifact that can stop the war.
Take this thing. It's a prophecy or some shit.
I'm dying.
That's one of two things that made me laugh this episode. Yeah, this is a rough one. Water T was just a funny, stupid gag character from Get Swifty, so making a whole episode following him in his fight against the Numericans wasn't the best idea. It's kind of the same thing with PB in this season's premiere. Water T is a fun character in small doses, but centering a whole episode around him and having half of the script consist of letter and number puns was not fun to watch. It's also a parody of Star Wars for some reason. Water T goes to Earth to get Goldenfold, since he knows math and there's math on the artifact that Water T can't solve. I love Goldenfold, so having an episode that he stars in is great, but they did my boy dirty by making him star in this episode. Goldenfold and Water T have beef because Ice-T used to be in his math class and he never did his homework and disrespected math. But Goldenfold taught him 4-4 time, which helped his rap career. But at the Grammys, Ice-T didn't thank math in his speech, causing the president, who was the governor at that time, to get mad at Goldenfold. Holy shit, I don't care. I guess it's somewhat cool to see the president before he became the president, but that's it. Goldenfold deciphers the math on the artifact and they end up on the planet E10, which is inhabited by a bunch of primitive shapes. They also took number 7 hostage. At E10 they party, but in the morning it's revealed that 7 took the artifact. Water T finds her and they start to get down. God, the pacing in this episode is abysmal. Like, watch this.
Coming out of Helvetica Lightspeed and approaching planet E10.
God damn.
Maybe it knows its home.
What the math is happening?
Die, letter scum!
That's fast, right? Well, that's the pacing of the entire episode and it gave me a headache. There is no time to breathe and they are doing a parody of Star Wars, but I don't remember Star Wars being this fast paced. The Numericans arrive at E10 and they reveal Oxygen S is actually 8. Then 8 betrays 0 and becomes infinity using the artifact. I'm sorry how terribly I'm explaining this episode. I just want to get it over with because it's so bad. It's revealed that Water T didn't thank math because his dad yelled at him beforehand. So him and Goldenfold are now good.
I was there. Ceiling fell on him. Father!
That ceiling was poisoned.
There's the second laugh. Infinity attacks Alpha Betrium and Numericans. So Water T, 7, and Morty, who I didn't bring up because he doesn't matter much to the plot, he's just there so one of the title characters is in the episode, sing a rap song and the numbers and letters come together to fight Infinity. Then Ice-T and 7 start getting down and dirty to make the artifact glow, which then Water T turns it into a gun and shoots Infinity in the dick. Why am I doing this to myself? Water T also becomes Magma T because Magma Q gave him the... Why am I explaining this? Who cares? The episode ends with Morty loving math and Magma T finally completing his homework. The post-credits scene also teases a sequel to this episode with Ice Cube. Ice Cube, I love you, but I hope that never happens. If I had to describe this episode using one word, it would be brain rot. It feels like a big budget shitpost, and not in the funny way. The pacing is awful, and it's extremely unfunny. I actually just can't with it. It's not as egregious as other episodes, but at least with those episodes, they were so bad that they had some merit. This episode has nothing going for it. It makes me mad because I love Goldenfold and they waste him here. This is his first starring role, and probably his last, which makes me sad. Justice for Goldenfold. I love stupid plots in Rick and Morty, but there is a point where they can go past just being stupid and become terrible. And this episode surpassed that point. Even in terms of the placement in the season, it's bad, because Rick is nowhere to be seen. That would have been fine in any other season, or even the first part of this season, but since it's placed in the latter half of season 7, they don't get to explore Rick's feelings on the Rick Prime incident more, which sucks. I tried to go as quickly as I could talking about this episode because I legitimately don't want to think about it ever again. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 65th spot, below Vindicators 3, The Return of World Ender, but above Pickle Rick. Episode 9 is Mort Ragnarik. This episode starts off with Rick discovering that heaven actually does exist by killing Jerry over and over again. This is a hilarious way to start off the episode. What makes it even funnier is Jerry is willing to get killed 20-ish times, and now his dead grandparents are mad at him for blueballing them. This is another great instance of Jerry and Rick actually being friends. Rick isn't forcing him, Jerry volunteered. Rick wants to get to heaven because there is infinite energy there, but Rick can't get into the Christian heaven because he is so atheist, so he attempts to get into the easiest heaven there is to get into, Valhalla. The first time when I watched this episode, I didn't like this concept. I don't know what I was thinking. Rick scheming his way into heaven so he can obtain infinite energy is a brilliant concept. I think I was mad at the fact that Rick is so overpowered that he can cheat death, but honestly, I've kind of gotten over that criticism. If the episodes are creative and fun, I don't really care if Rick's overpowered anymore. That's character development right there. To get into Valhalla, you have to die in battle, so Rick has Bigfoot kill him. Rick apparently loves to mess with Bigfoot, so he is up to the task. Bigfoot kills Rick and he makes it to Valhalla, which is just a bunch of people fighting in an open field and drinking. Rick starts to create a beacon to get back and obtain the infinite energy, but Morty shows up after he was tricked into letting Bigfoot out, and he was killed in a really gruesome way. Like, damn, what did he ever do to you, Bigfoot? Rick and Morty piss off the Vikings, so Morty kills the Vikings while Rick is making a way to get back home. They make it home. This is where the episode starts to lose me. So the Pope captures Bigfoot and releases a clone of Rick in enemy territory so Bigfoot will take out his enemies while chasing after Rick. I don't know, the plot about the Pope being secretly evil feels so Reddit atheist to me. Also, his justification of killing his enemies with Bigfoot is really flawed. Like, he is still causing the killings. Bigfoot is rewarded for his good work with the chance to kill Rick, but Rick apologizes for messing with him because Rick thought he was dumb. Rick learns the lesson that people are smart in different ways. Then they go to kill the Pope. I like while sneaking into the Vatican, they try not to kill the guards, but eventually have to, and Morty thanks Rick for trying it his way. Rick is willing to try Morty's ideas and not kill anyone, which shows he's changing. The Pope has infinite energy now and easily kills them. They return to Valhalla. Then there's a montage of them trying to kill the Pope and dying, which was pretty funny. Then Bigfoot frees his comrades, who are classic monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula, and yeah, this is stupid. Not in the good way either. The Pope sends the group to Valhalla, where Rick apologizes to the Vikings for thinking they were stupid. This is a nice moment, showing Rick has learned from underestimating Bigfoot. Like he said, people are smart in different ways. Then Rick makes the Vikings mad and leaves the monsters to defend the beacon. He does this so right when they arrive at the Vatican, the Pope will lose his power. Quick question, why did the monsters have to defend the beacon? It was pretty fucked up for Rick to leave the monsters there. Like, they could have all gone home. They just had to outrun the Vikings. Then when they got home, the Vikings would immediately destroy the beacon. I guess Rick just wanted to be there when the Pope lost his power. This is a very Rick thing to do, but I'm surprised Morty didn't object to this. Does this matter? Not really, I'm just nitpicking. The Pope is defeated and Rick and Morty release the now human Bigfoot back into the wild.
Ow! Go on! Get out of here!
I'm going, okay?
It's really funny that Rick and Morty are so adamant on Bigfoot going back into the forest. This episode was fine. It was a reasonably fun episode with some problems. I don't like the Pope stuff, but I do like how he's commentary on how people with religious power will misuse their position, literally using the power of heaven to kill people he doesn't like. I like the look of Valhalla. It's neat. Not much else to say about this one. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 51st spot, below Rick's No More Poons, Rickmas Morcation, but above Bethic Twinstinct. And finally, episode 10 is Fear No Mort. We're at the end of another season, and what a way to end it. This episode starts off with the intro, which I do believe is the first time they started an episode with the intro. I know this part doesn't matter much, but I do believe it was the right choice. It would have felt a bit odd to have the intro play anywhere else in the episode. There really isn't a cold open. After the intro, we are shown Rick and Morty at the Carnival of Nightmares, a haunted house type attraction. They're not scared of anything from the attraction. This is a great concept. Of course, after everything Rick and Morty have been through the entire series, they would not be scared of gross looking creatures hurling insults. It shows how much Morty has changed throughout the series. Season 1 Morty would have been shitting his pants here. A man overhears that they were not scared of anything and tells them of the scariest place in the universe, and it's on Earth. They go there and it's a Denny's. Oh no, they're gonna run into Walter White there. I guess Walter did also go into the fear hole. Rick and Morty think that the guy just wanted a ride back to Earth, but after getting their food, the waiter tells them that there is a fear hole in the men's restroom. They go to investigate the hole, and it's pretty gross. There's a TV in the stall that plays a video explaining the hole, and the guy that brought them there is the host. The hole shows you your biggest fear and helps you get over it. There is even a place to put your photo on the wall once you escape. I love the mystery this hole sets up in the beginning. I mean, only 3 people are on the board, and since the video is being played from a VHS player, it plants the seed in the back of your mind that this hole can indeed kill you. Or maybe not many people are stupid enough to jump into a hole in a Denny's bathroom. Rick calls it stupid and they leave. but then Morty runs back and jumps into the hole. Creatures start to attack Morty, and I love their designs. They are so creepy and gross, and their muted color palette is gorgeous. Rick comes in and saves Morty, and they leave. Okay, so I believe this is the best written episode in the show. That's a high bar, but this episode sets up the mystery of the fear hole and what is actually going on extremely well. The episode sets up that Rick and Morty are in the hole together, but there are hints that would allow you to guess that Rick never jumped in. I know, shocking. The first of these hints is right when Morty screams Rick, Rick shows up immediately. This is the moment where the fear hole clocked Morty. It knew that Rick not jumping in would be a fear Morty would have, just by his simple scream for help. Rick and Morty go home, but there, a Rick from the past crashes into the living room with Diane and dies, leaving Diane confused. I love this so much. Watching this episode for the first time was an experience. I thought they weren't going to do anything big with this episode, since they already had so many big moments in Unmort Ricken. That's one of the reasons why Diane showing up out of nowhere was so shocking. Rick and Morty realize that they are still in the fear hole, because this would be impossible in the real world. She's gone and can't come back. They have a talk on what's going on, and Rick says that Morty's biggest fear must be Rick going back to Diane. This lures Morty into a false sense of normalcy. He believes that the fear hole is actually going after Rick's fear of a second chance with Diane. So he lowers his guard, not knowing that Rick isn't even there. We get a couple scenes of Diane warming up to this older version of Rick, and it's really sweet. We also get to see her personality for the first time. She is a lot like Rick, playing off of him extremely well. She's headstrong, passionate, and can deal with Rick's nihilism and joke around. But is this how Diane really was, or how Morty would assume she was like? Rick isn't in the hole, so it couldn't use his mind to see what she's really like. What I believe is that the hole is like an observer from Rick defending your Mort. It can see everything and uses that to craft the perfect experience. So this is how Diane actually was. But hey, that's just a theory. During Rick and Diane's bonding scenes, there's another hint that something is up. Morty is always there. I feel like in the real world, Rick would have just left Morty, especially going to a bar. But Morty is always there. Such a clever way to set up that everything is centered around Morty. Morty goes into the garage and sees how awful Rick looks. Morty believes that the hole is feeding off of Rick's fears, but Rick believes that he looks like this because Morty's biggest fear is to watch him die. I love this back and forth, not knowing who is really getting the fear hole experience, or are they both? Morty goes to Denny's and talks to the fear hole guy. He is very intimidating, talking about how happiness can't last forever and how delicious Rick's fears are, alluding to the fact that they are sucking Rick dry, which will potentially kill him. Morty won't let that happen, so he starts to put himself through situations that would make himself fearful, and figures out that a big fear he has is not being accepted by society. So he goes around doing dumb shit. If this was the fear that the episode was centered around, Morty not being accepted, it would have been fine, but not nearly as impactful as the ending reveal of his actual biggest fear. I feel like Morty has grown past this fear, or at least it has lessened. I mean, he got invited to a party and wet caught a Morty canned summer, so this feels artificial, which is all part of the hole's plan. Because Morty is hogging the fear hole, Diane starts to act up, leading Rick to go to Morty. You might be saying, hey, Morty isn't in the scene where Rick and Diane eat tacos, so that disproves your statement about how Morty is always there. Well, Morty is making Diane act up, which gives Rick motivation to go back. This is mostly for the audience, explaining why Rick would be mad at Morty, so it still makes sense. Rick sees that Morty is dying, so he goes up on the stage with Morty to conquer the fear hole, and they sing a hilarious rap song. Rick and Morty have finally escaped the fear hole, leaving Diane behind. But the writers went above and beyond with this one.
So yeah, I'd say there's a 100% chance that we're still...
God damn it!
They keep climbing out of the fear hole, trying to figure out what fear the fear hole wants them to conquer.
$8 for a side of bacon?
Are you fucking kidding me?
It's a symptom of a larger concern, Morty.
Eventually they think they are finally out of the hole, playing a montage of their life as they grow old, ending with Morty looking like Jerry, and they climb right back out of the hole. This is a hilarious reveal. Obviously we knew they were still in the hole, but having the fear that takes them back as Morty looking like his father was hilarious. The song is also good. Rick then says something that makes Morty realize what is really going on.
No, we're Rick and Morty. I'm not leaving without you.
What did you say?
I said I'm not leaving you in here. Come on, you're irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. Irreplaceable.
Morty finally realizes that his biggest fear is that Rick wouldn't jump into the hole with him. He's afraid Rick would never say something like that in real life. He is replaceable, and Rick might one day leave him. I love this reveal. I've been talking about the effect that Rick Prime dying had on Rick, but never once considered how it might affect Morty. Rick completed his biggest goal in life. Now Morty is worried that Rick might leave or replace him. I mean, the reason why Rick kept Morty around for so long is because he's Rick Prime's grandson. Morty leaves the hole and tells Rick that Diane was in there, and to trust him not to go in there. They leave, but Rick runs to the hole, mirroring the beginning of the episode, with Morty running to the hole, seeming like he is going to jump in. But then he pulls out a photo of Morty and puts it on the wall. My god, not only is that insanely sweet, this one action also disproves Morty's fear. Rick loves him and trusts him, so Rick won't leave. This episode is fantastic. Like, everything is perfect. I can't think of a single criticism. Harry Belden as Morty was superb in this episode, proving that he was the right choice to replace Roiland. One detail I didn't mention is how simple Rick's inventions are, like de-aging serum, a robot that delivers food, and a beer dispenser. This is because Morty can't think of crazy inventions, which might take away from my theory about the whole knowing all, but This is a great character study of Morty, really digging deep into his fears. I love how extremely well written Morty is. He's changed throughout the series, mostly in believable ways, which is a problem I have with a lot of adult animated shows. Their characters never change, and when they do, it's hardly ever for the better. This is an episode that defied all odds, and shows that even if Rick and Morty will still have some bad episodes, there will always be a surprise episode that will surpass all expectations, which keeps the hype for future seasons real. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 3rd spot, below Total Recall, but above Me Seeks and Destroy. I actually never thought that a new Rick and Morty episode would be in the top 5 ever again. But fear no Mort stopped my fear of that. And we're once again at the end of another season. In my opinion, this season has 3 bad episodes, 1 mid episode, 2 good episodes, 2 great episodes, and 2 amazing episodes. I'm just gonna put this out there. This season is better than season 3. I know, I am almost as shocked as you. Sure, this season did break the streak of no bad episodes that season 6 had, but this season just has higher highs than that season. And now that I'm thinking about it, if you get rid of the bad episodes in each season, I'd say season 7 would be more enjoyable to revisit than 3. Sure, season 3 has my favorite episode in the entire series, but right now, it's the only season 3 episode that's in the top 10. Season 7 has 2, which is insane. I think the writers did some amazing stuff this season, and it seems like they respect their fans way more than back in season 5. I might be wrong here, but I can't recall a single incest joke in this season. Holy shit, that's a big accomplishment for this series. Speaking of jokes, there's a lot less groaners in this season. There are less jokes of someone referencing something from media, and that's the whole joke. There are still jokes like that, don't get me wrong. I mean, Wet Caught a Mortican Summer is basically just that. But there is a noticeable decrease in those types of jokes. This might be because of them getting rid of Justin Roiland, so we can't improv. But then again, apparently the new voice actors just voiced over Roiland's lines. I guess we'll see if Roiland was the problem next season. Same with the meta jokes, they are just more enjoyable and there are less of them, and I'm glad they didn't try and up themselves from last season's full meta Jack Rick. Then there's the self-references to stuff earlier in the series, and they actually didn't bother me this season. Most of the time the references were used for plot reasons. Even when they weren't, I didn't mind them. I guess I've matured over the past month. The animation and character designs are astounding. The animation team just keeps improving. It kinda sucks that more American animated shows don't have this quality of animation. I know Rick and Morty is extremely popular, but so is Invincible. Why does that show just keep getting worse animation-wise? I know, low-hanging fruit. This might be Rick's best season in terms of his character. On the first watch, there were plenty of moments I missed, showing that he was trying to change, which on a rewatch made me appreciate the season even more. The writers did an astounding job making so many subtle moments depicting Rick changing. And of course, Rick killing Rick Prime was amazing. I'm still dumbfounded that they did that, and even more dumbfounded that it was actually satisfying. Morty is kinda the same old, he is less jaded than season 3, which is another reason why I like this season a bit more. I like how Morty knows more, but he isn't being a Reddit edgelord. Most of the plots are creative and fun, and even when they aren't, they are memorable, which is something. I do have some problems with this season. There are hardly any classic B plots in this season. Sure, there are B plots, but most of the time, they relate directly to the A plot. Let me explain. Back in season 1, let's take the season finale plots. The A plot is Rick, Morty, and Summer throwing a party, and the B plot is Beth and Jerry going on a Titanic getaway. Sure, they do merge in the end with Beth and Jerry coming home angry, but they were separate things. But in this season, there are no subplots that don't directly relate to the A plot. In Mort Ragnarik, there's a B plot about Bigfoot being kidnapped by the Pope, but there's only 2 scenes focusing on this plot, and then he goes after Rick. This is why I feel that Summer, Jerry, Beth, and Space Beth were extremely underutilized this season. Summer and Jerry both got 1 episode that focuses on them, and that's it. Beth and Space Beth got 0 episodes focusing on them. I mean, Goldenfold got more focused than them. They're just kinda there most of the time. I do miss when the family got to do stuff when Rick wasn't around. But this season wasn't focused on that. They allowed themselves to have more time to make the plots fully developed. I'm not saying that's bad. Some of these episodes would be hurt by having a B plot, but there are some episodes that needed a B plot, mostly the bad ones. In season 1, when there was a bad plot, usually the other plot was decent, so it didn't feel like the episodes were bad overall. I don't know, I might just be talking out of my ass, but I hope next season has a couple B plots separate from the A plots. Other than those things, I can't really think of anything negative to bring up about this season overall. So for the last time in this retrospective series, I'm going to ask, was season 7 of Rick and Morty great? Yes, I do believe it was. It had some shortcomings, but what this season did right, it really did right. On to the final ranking. In the 71st spot is Rick Dependent Spray. In the 70th spot is Claw and Hoarder Special Ricktums Morty. In the 69th spot is How Poopy Got His Poop Back. In the 68th spot is Pickle Rick. In the 67th spot is Rise of the Numericans, the movie. In the 66th spot is Vindicators 3, The Return of World Ender. In the 65th spot is Gotron Jerrysis Rick Vangelion. In the 64th spot is The ABCs of Beth. In the 63rd spot is Rattlestar Rick Lactica. In the 62nd spot is Wet Caught a Mortican Summer. In the 61st spot is a Mortican Grickfeedy. In the 60th spot is Child Rick of Mort. In the 59th spot is Raising Gazorpazorb. In the 58th spot is the Rickturian Morty Date. In the 57th spot is One Crew Over the Crewcoo's Morty. In the 56th spot is Pro Mortius. In the 55th spot is Full Meta Jack Rick. In the 54th spot is Interdimensional Cable 2 Tempting Fate. In the 53rd spot is Bethic Twinstinct. In the 52nd spot is Mort Ragnarik. In the 51st spot is Rictional Morpoon's Rickmas Morcation. In the 50th spot is Anatomy Park. In the 49th spot is Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Rick Pete. In the 48th spot is a Rick Convenient Mort. In the 47th spot is Something Ricked This Way Comes. In the 46th spot is a Rick and King Mortar's Mort. In the 45th spot is Morty's Mind Blowers. In the 44th spot is Jurassic Mort. In the 43rd spot is Autoerotica Simulation. In the 42nd spot is The Old Man in the Seat. In the 41st spot is Never Ricking Morty. In the 40th spot is Mort Dinner Rick Andre. In the 39th spot is Air Force Wong. In the 38th spot is Lawnmower Dog. In the 37th spot is The Whirly Durly Conspiracy. In the 36th spot is Rick, a Mort Well Lived. In the 35th spot is Rick and Morty's Thanksploitation Spectacular. Oh my god, halfway through. These names are killing me. If you made it this far, comment down below down with the Galactic Federation. It will confuse people and also it will let me know that people are actually watching this part of the video. In the 34th spot is Rixty Minutes. In the 33rd spot is Star Mort Return of the Jerry. In the 32nd spot is Forgetting Sarek Morchel. In the 31st spot is The Pilot. In the 30th spot is Rick Mansing the Stone. In the 29th spot is The Jarek Trap. In the 28th spot is Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. In the 27th spot is Ricksky Business. In the 26th spot is Rick Defending Your Mort. In the 25th spot is Rictional Friendshine of the Spotless Mort. In the 24th spot is That's a Morte. In the 23rd spot is Look Who's Purging Now. In the 22nd spot is Analyze Piss. In the 21st spot is Rest and Relaxation. In the 20th spot is Get Swifty. In the 19th spot is Final Desmissation. In the 18th spot is Morty Night Run. In the 17th spot is Mortyplicity. In the 16th spot is M. Night Shyamalians. In the 15th spot is the Vat of Acid episode. In the 14th spot is Solo Ricks. In the 13th spot is Rick Potion number 9. In the 12th spot is Rick Mirai Jack. In the 11th spot is the Rick Shank Redemption. In the 10th spot is Night Family. In the 9th spot is the Ricks Must Be Crazy. In the 8th spot is Wedding Squatchers. In the 7th spot is Unmort Ricken. In the 6th spot is A Rickle in Time. In the 5th spot is Close Encounters of the Rick Kind. In the 4th spot is Me Seeks and Destroy. In the 3rd spot is Fear No Mort. In the 2nd spot is Total Recall. And in the 1st spot is the Ricklantics Mix-Up. I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who has supported this series the last 8 months. Your support means the world to me. I'm glad that I can make these stupid videos over analyzing a series I love, and people actually like them. If there's another series you want me to cover, please comment down below. And here's to Season 8. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.